Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be going into a deep dive on Storm Druid. Like our other deep dive, this is going to be a long video. We're going to go through the early game, leveling, getting our first aspects to the mid game where things are going to change, and then late game where the build is just going to look totally different from where we started, and we optimize our build, which is just so cool how it ends up in the end. The Storm Druid definitely looks like one of the most powerful builds in the game, without a doubt, especially after they made some buffs to Lightning Storm, nerfs to Tornado, changed the build around a little bit. I think it's still going to be extremely strong, and I think it makes so much sense now to play it a little bit differently. And because of the buffs to certain companion skills and trample, we're also going to change the leveling route a little bit too. So let's just go ahead and dive right into the skills. Let's get started right away. First up, we're going to want to get Storm Strike. Storm Strike is the best basic skill, pretty much hands down. It gives you 25% damage reduction. It can also be upgraded to give Immobilize and Vulnerability. So it just gives the most ailment effects and most bonuses for you, basically out of all the other basic skills. So we're gonna go ahead and open up with Storm Strike, and we're gonna get Enhanced Storm Strike for that Immobilize chance. Then we're gonna move over to Lightning Storm. This ability is really strong after it was buffed recently in the Service Land weekend. And then we're gonna go back and finish off with Fierce Storm Strike to give us a 50% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. And remember that Storm Strike bounces, so it's very, very good at getting lots of enemies immobilized and vulnerable. Then from that point, we're gonna go to, from Lightning Storm, we're going to get Enhanced Lightning Storm and Raging Lightning Storm, so it gets an additional lightning strike and does more damage. We just unlocked the defensive skills, and we're actually going to go ahead and get started with Earthen Bulwark and Enhanced Earthen Bulwark. This will give us access to Unstoppable very early, which we need in order to get out of any type of crowd control we encounter while we're still leveling. So around now we're level 8. We're probably halfway through Act 1, and so you're going to run into things that can immobilize you, stun you, blind you, etc., and you definitely are going to want that immobilization, the way to get out of that. At this point, we're going to just start pumping points into Lightning Storm until it's 4 out of 5, and we've finally unlocked the companion part of the skill tree. From here, we want to get Poison Creeper. This has gotten buffed tremendously. It is so strong now, does 90% damage over 2 seconds, which is so much damage. It's even stronger than Hurricane, honestly, in terms of DPS. So Poison Creeper is extremely strong. And while we're still leveling, you might as well also get Wolves, because they also got buffed. Both of these skills do 3 times as much damage as they used to, so just those 2 points, just to have extra skills on your bar, is going to really help with your damage. From here, we're going to get Nature's Reach, deal 3% increased damage to distant enemies. This is perfect, so basically don't be in melee range, and it also says double this bonus if they are also slowed, stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. So we're going to put 3 points into that. Now, it's very important, once you do that, we're going to make some changes to our core skill here, Lightning Storm. We're going to change from Raging Lightning Storm, which is 1 additional lightning strike, to Primal Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm has an 8% chance to immobilize enemies hit for 3 seconds. So the reason we're switching to that immobilization is because our 9% damage bonus is doubled to 18% if they're also immobilized. And so we want to get that 18% damage bonus, which is a lot. And then from there, of course, we unlocked our Wrath skills, right? Well, you look at our current skills, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can go ahead and get 6 is Trample. Trample is super strong. It got its damage bonus tripled. It's extremely powerful single target damage. So if you're ever struggling with a boss, Trample is the way to go. Basically, read this right here, Enhanced Trample. Trample deals 150% bonus damage. This bonus is reduced by 50% for each enemy hit after the first. So you really want to basically just single target elites, bosses, etc. with Trample. It'll basically one-shot them. And then we'll also get Savage Trample to grant us 20 spirit when we use it. So now that we have that, we're going to go back up, finish off Lightning Storm, get it 5 out of 5, take 1 point out of Wolves, right? And we're going to put it into Cyclone. And so now we have most of our storm skills set up, and then you can also get Enhanced Hurricane, which is going to make them slowed, which is great because Nature's Reach, double the bonus if they're also slowed, so 18% increased damage. And we can also get Natural Hurricane. Hurricane has a 15% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. And now vulnerability is 20% increased damage. We already got that from Storm Strike, but now we also are going to get it from Hurricane. And also Elemental Exposure here, storm skills have a 10% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 1 second. Very, very strong. And we're actually going to put 2 points into Elemental Exposure so that the vulnerability lasts at least 2 seconds. And we're going to take 1 point out of Poison Creeper because we need our 6th skill to be Cataclysm. And honestly, Hurricane and Poison Creeper are extremely similar in terms of what they accomplish for you. They both do AoE damage. Hurricane just does it a little bit slower, and it does a little bit more damage. And it's going to have better synergies with the build anyways because it's a storm skill. Once we get Cataclysm, we're going to start getting some of these passives over here. 1 point into charged atmosphere. Every 18 seconds, a lightning bolt hits a nearby enemy, dealing 45% damage. We're also going to want to get bad omen, electric shock, basically 1 point into each of this just to get started. Now at this point, we're level 27, but around level 15, you actually are going to be heading to Skazglen because, you know, Act 1 finishes after about an hour and 40 minutes. So we're just going to really quickly talk about aspects you should be collecting in Skazglen. Now, there's really nothing for the Storm Druid in Fractured Peaks, and so pretty much everything that we're looking for is going to be found in Skazglen, like 4 different aspects actually. The first one we're going to look for is called Overcharged Aspect. Overcharged Aspect says lucky hit up to a 10% chance when dealing lightning damage to overload the target for 3 seconds, causing any direct damage you deal to them to pulse 350 additional damage to surrounding enemies, unlocked by completing Mariner's Refuge in Skazglen. So guaranteed, and it's always the lowest value, remember, when you find this in a dungeon. So you're going to want to go here first. It's perfect for a lightning build. I found this during the Server Slam weekend, and this was the legendary aspect that made me switch from Earth to Storm because of how powerful this was. And just remember that not all of your storm skills actually deal lightning damage. There's actually only 3 that deal lightning damage, and that is Lightning Storm right here, Storm Strike, your basic skill, and it's also Cataclysm, your ultimate. So those are the 3 skills that just got really strong because of Overcharged Aspect. You're also going to want Aspect of Inner Calm. Deal 3% increased damage for each second you stand still, up to 30%. Now the reason this is actually really good for our Storm build is because Lightning Storm is actually channeled. You actually are standing still channeling this, and so basically what you want to do is get full spirit, full resource, right? And then just use Lightning Storm as long as you possibly can, which is why we also want to get Edgemaster's Aspect. Skills deal up to 24% increased damage based on your available primary resource when cast, receiving the maximum benefit when you have full primary resource, unlocked by completing Old Stones in Skazglen. This is perfect for Lightning Storm because you're going to basically cast Lightning Storm at full spirit, and then as you channel it, even as your primary resource goes down, you're basically snapshotting that initial cast when you're at full resource, and it's going to make Lightning Storm every single time you casted it get that full 24% increased damage. This one is super important to pick up when you're in Skazglen. And there's one more that you want to get in Skazglen called Aspect of the Expectant. This is a generic that I like to get with all of my builds. They nerfed it because it was so good, but it says here attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill cast by 5% up to 50%, unlocked by completing Underroot in Skazglen. So those are the 4 aspects you can get in Skazglen. All of them are super great for the Storm Druid, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to the skill tree where we can finish this off now that we have those 4 aspects. Now we're going to get some funky stuff. As you remember, we just got 1 into each of these because they're kind of 1-point wonders, but you can make them even better a little bit later. But we're actually going to put 1 point into Defiance and then Natural Disaster. So this is going to give us 4% increased damage to elites. Elites are bosses, champions, and elites, remember. And then Natural Disaster, it says here, your storm skills deal 4% increased damage to enemies that are stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. This is good because we have a couple different things that give us immobilize, like Storm Strike and also Lightning Storm. And then we also got Electric Shock, which says lucky hit dealing lightning damage to enemies has a 5% chance to immobilize them for 3 seconds. So we've got a couple different sources of immobilization, and we're going to get more points into this later. Once we get Natural Disaster, we want to put 3 points into Resonance. Resonance is super strong, and it reads nature magic skills deal 6% increased damage. Triple this bonus if an earth skill is the next skill cast after a storm skill, or a storm skill is the next skill cast after an earth skill. 6 times 3 is 18. That is 18% increased damage if you simply weave an earth skill into your rotation. Once we get Resonance, we're going to get rid of Storm Strike, and we're going to get Earth Spike. So Earth Spike, Enhanced Earth Spike, gives you a 10% chance to stun. By the way, if you stun an enemy, that's going to give you a lot of bonus damage because of all the different passives we have. And we're also going to get Wild Earth Spike, summon a second Earth Spike when hitting an immobilized or stunned enemy. Lots of synergy there, as you can see. So now what you're doing is your playstyle has shifted a little bit. You're going to be basically using Earth Spike before you use any other ability. And this is so strong. 18% increased damage. Right before you use Cataclysm, use an Earth Spike. Right before you use Hurricane, use an Earth Spike. And then you get 18% increased damage on that attack. So really, really strong. And you're going to want to basically put 2 more points into Electric Shock at this point to increase your chance for lightning damage to immobilize enemies, since immobilization is so important for this build. Finally, we can unlock our Keystone passive, and we can get Perfect Storm. Storm skills that you cast grant 1 spirit and deal 15% increased damage when damaging a vulnerable, immobilized, or slowed enemy, which will pretty much be the entire time. So we only have a few more skills left, so I'm going to finish those off, and then we're going to move over to the rest of our leveling aspects in Dry Steppes, Hawuzar, and Kehjistan. So you want to get more into Natural Disaster, which increases damage done to stunned, immobilized, or knocked back targets, more into Defiance, so you deal more damage to elites, champions, and bosses, and then we're going to finish off with Elemental Exposure. Your storm skills have a 10% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. You're going to, every 12 seconds, a lightning bolt hits a nearby enemy, dealing 45% damage, and that's lightning damage, of course. And then we're going to put points into Bad Omen, up to a 30% chance when dealing damage to a vulnerable, immobilized, or stunned enemy that a lightning bolt also hits, dealing 55% damage. Pretty crazy stuff. Okay, so we've got those passives, and now we're going to max out Hurricane 5 out of 5. And the reason we're going to max out Hurricane about this time, there's actually a really awesome aspect you can get, which is actually right here. Just type in Hurricane, aspect of the Tempest. Hurricane damage is increased by 7% each second while active, unlocked by completing Blind Burrows in Hawuzar. So start pumping points into Hurricane once you get aspect of the Tempest. Those two are just going to make, it's going to make Hurricane so much stronger. Your AoE damage is going to be so much better. So it's a really great aspect to pick up while you're in Hawuzar. Once we max out Hurricane, we also are going to be switching. We actually don't need Earth and Bulwark anymore, so we can get rid of that. We're going to get Cyclone Armor, which will give us 10% non-physical damage reduction, and then we can upgrade that to enemies that are knocked back to get slowed, and then enemies that get knocked back are vulnerable as well. So now we're pretty much all Storm. We got rid of Earth and Bulwark. We have Unstoppable from Trample already, so we're still set on that. Trample is just so strong. There's no reason not to include it. It's incredible. We got our 6 skills all set up very, very good. 1 point into Heart of the Wild, so we can put 3 points into Wild Impulses. Your core skills cost 9% more spirit, but deal 15% increased damage, so that is super strong. Your Lightning Storm is going to do so much damage. Okay, so we have 5 more points. Put more points into Endless Tempest, because that's going to make our Hurricane stronger and last longer, and the longer it lasts, the more damage it does. And then our last 2 points go into Prime Cataclysm to make Cataclysm last even longer, and then Supreme Cataclysm. Lightning strikes from Cataclysm make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. So we finished our skill tree. This is what it looks like when you're just leveling up a Storm Druid, and it's going to change as we get our different gear, I'm sure, as you know. Okay, so aspects to get. Now let's continue. There's actually a really great one, aspect of Cyclonic Force. Cyclone Armor also provides physical damage reduction. In addition, Cyclone Armor will also be applied to all nearby allies. Now, it doesn't say here on d4planner.io where you get this, so I have to go double check, and that is from the Collapsed Vault in Kehjistan. So this is a Kehjistan aspect, keep that in mind. Very, very strong one. We're going to get aspect of Shared Misery. This is one of my favorite ones. Lucky hit when you hit a crowd-controlled enemy, which, by the way, includes immobilized, stunned, slowed, any type of crowd control, knocked back. There's a 30% chance for that crowd control effect to spread to another unaffected enemy, unlocked by completing Oblivion in Hawuzar. So aspect of Shared Misery and aspect of the Tempest, get both of those while you are in Hawuzar. There's also another defensive aspect I really like called Aspect of Might. Basic skills grant 25% damage reduction for 4 seconds, unlocked by completing Dark Ravine and Dry Steppes. This is very important to get, because when we switch from Storm Strike, which was previously granting us 25% damage reduction, over to Earth Spike, we're losing that, and so Aspect of Might basically gives us 25% damage reduction back again, and also Cyclone Armor is going to give us 10% damage reduction as well. So we're back, we're strong, no need to be afraid of anything. And then finally, we want Aspect of the Umbral, which you can get from Dry Steppes. You can get it from Champion's Demise. Restore 1 of your primary resource when you crowd control an enemy. I mean, Hurricane slows everyone in an AoE. All of your storm skills have a chance to immobilize. You have so much AoE crowd control. So this is going to really help just keep your resource up as you continue to progress. And that is basically all of the skills, all of the aspects you can get from leveling, guaranteed from dungeons, into the Codex of Power, and you can continue to replace them over and over as you progress. Now that we've probably hit level 50, we've completed most of the acts, we did our Keystone Dungeon. Let's talk a little bit about the Paragon board. Now, the Paragon board can get pretty complex, but we're going to go through it, and I'm going to show you the 4 Paragon boards that you should put your points into as a Storm Druid. So we're going to start here, and remember that our primary stat as a Druid is Willpower, which is going to increase increase the damage our skills do. So willpower, willpower, willpower. That is the way you want to go. And then this gives you increased damage and life. I'm not going to read every single node, but just know that this is damage percent health and percent damage. And then we're going to go straight up and we're going to do our glyph socket. You can find glyphs. Glyphs make your character more powerful, and you can upgrade them in nightmare dungeons, which you're going to start doing as well. And then over here we have damage and willpower. Over here we have resistance. We're going to go for damage. So we're going to get these nodes over here on the left side. So we started on the right, transition to the left, and we get to choose our first board. And we're going to choose Thunderstruck. Now, you know, pretty obvious, right? Thunderstruck. We're going a lightning storm druid, so makes total sense. You can see there's tons of willpower nodes here. So willpower, 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 more willpower, and we got increased critical strike damage and Tempest. Gives you more critical strike damage and vulnerability damage. And then we're also going to branch up this way and get Thunderstruck, which says storm skills deal 30% increased critical strike damage against vulnerable or immobilized enemies. Very, very strong. We've got lots of immobilization, and we've got lots of things that make enemies immobilized. We're going to move over here, and also we can get critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, get all that. And then we're going to get willpower nodes as much as we can. And we're going to get the next one called Constricting Tendrils. Now, Constricting Tendrils is very strong. You're going to be very excited to see this. So let's go ahead and get all of the nodes that have willpower as we move over here. And there you go. And we're going to get Constricting Tendrils. Lucky hit. Nature magic skills have up to a 15% chance to entangle the enemy with vines, immobilizing them, right? That's key for our build, for 2 seconds, and poisoning them for 120% of the base damage dealt over 4 seconds. So we've introduced poison into the build, which is going to be very important. Now, depending on your luck, you know, as you're doing, you know, World Tier 3 activities like dungeons, nightmare dungeons, etc., you're going to eventually want to start hunting down uniques, and there are 2 uniques that you're going to want to get in this. So let's say at this point, you know, your max level, you've got 68 Paragon points by now. You're going to try to get Tempest Roar. That's what you're going to want to get first. So look for dungeons that have helmets to try to find the unique helmet Tempest Roar. It says here, lucky hit storm skills have a 15% chance to grant 10 spirit. That's amazing. And it says your base storm skills are now werewolf skills. This is very important and completely changes actually the way we're going to build our character. Now, as you know, storm skills are now werewolf skills. Keep that in mind. And we're going to take some points out of this actual tree right here. Now, the weakest out of these storm passives is actually Endless Tempest. Increasing the duration of Hurricane and Cataclysm by 15% is actually, I mean, what is 15% of 10 seconds? That's 1.5 seconds, right? Not that much. So let's take 3 points out of Endless Tempest. We're going to put 1 point into Neurotoxin, right? We've got poison introduced into the build. Poisoned enemies are slowed by 8%. Awesome. But we're also, more importantly, going to put 3 points into Toxic Claws. We actually have to take 1 point out of one more skill, and I think we want to take it out of Elemental Exposure. It's only 1 second you're gaining with that point. So Toxic Claws. Critical strikes with werewolf skills deal 22.5% of their base damage as poisoning damage over 4 seconds. This is crazy, right? Critical strikes with werewolf skills. Well, right here, Tempest Roar, your base storm skills are now also werewolf skills. So now our storm druid has kind of shifted and is now dealing poison damage through our storm skills, which are werewolf skills. And we're also going to put 3 points into Envenom. Poisoned enemies take 30% increased critical strike damage. And you can see, because our critical strikes cause poison damage, we've got Constricting Tendrils causing poison damage. Poisoned enemies will take 30% additional critical strike damage is huge. And we do have to take some points out of these skills. So, you know, take point out Charged Atmosphere, Elemental Exposure. You know, you're only gaining, you know, an extra strike. You know, you're only taking 3 seconds off this Charged Atmosphere, which is not that strong. So I'm taking points out of these because it's kind of just, again, one of those like 1 point wonder skills. If you ask me, it's just good to have. And additional points increase its effectiveness very modestly, not very much, right? And so now that we have that unique, we've switched the build around a little bit, and it's gotten much stronger now because those are werewolf skills. And then we're also going to replace Aspect of Might with Mad Wolf's Glee. Werewolf form is now your true form, and you gain +2 ranks to all werewolf skills. So all of your storm skills are werewolf skills. You just got +2 ranks to all of them. Really, really cool. Now, we also just lost 25% damage reduction from our basic skills, but that's okay. You could basically do that, or like replace it and put it into your pants slot. But you can actually replace Aspect of Cyclonic Force now with Vigorous Aspect. Gain 10 to 15% damage reduction while shapeshifted into a werewolf. This is even better than Cyclone Armor because you don't have to have Cyclone Armor in order to get this 10% or 10 to 15% damage reduction, because you're always a werewolf and it doesn't require a skill to always be a werewolf. So you're basically now a storm werewolf permanently, and you actually don't even need to have Cyclone Armor anymore. So you can actually change this to be a different skill. And the skill I actually recommend you change it to is actually Debilitating Roar. I know it's crazy, right? This is a bear skill, right? And you're going to want to get Preserving Debilitating Roar, so it heals you. And the reason you did that, because what you're going to end up doing is you're going to replace Aspect of Shared Misery with Aspect of the Dark Howl. Debilitating Roar is now a werewolf skill. In addition, Debilitating Roar will immobilize poisoned enemies for 2 to 4 seconds. So we've got so many different ways to immobilize enemies. We deal increased damage when enemies are immobilized. It's perfect synergy, and of course we're causing so much poison damage with all of our critical strikes and dealing increased damage to poisoned enemies. It can be quite a lot to remember. There's so much synergy that honestly you could forget. So this is shaping up to be close to our final form of the build. We also do want to switch out, though, Aspect of the Expectant. It's a little slow, and I prefer Rune Worker's Conduit Aspect. Now, this is an aspect you can't get guaranteed from dungeons, and neither is Aspect of the Dark Howl, so keep that in mind. This is where the build gets a little harder to finish off. Rune Worker's Conduit Aspect says, critical strikes with storm skills charge the air around you for 1 to 2 seconds, causing a lightning strike to periodically hit an enemy in the area for 500 lightning damage. This duration can be extended by additional critical strikes. So very, very good there. Obviously, this is one of the strongest storm skills or storm aspects in the game, in my opinion. If you've ever gotten it before, it probably, shocked you how strong it was. But it is very, very strong. And this is basically looking closer to our final build. Lots of really good aspects here, making us stronger in many different ways. And we've got our final combo where we're always a werewolf, which is very, very strong. So this is pretty much kind of wrapping it up here. What we also do want to get here is our final 2 Paragon boards. There's a lot of synergies left. This increases our nature damage over here, this rare node called Devastation. And then you can actually just follow the wisdom nodes until we get to this glyph socket. We want this glyph socket. We also want courage for extra life and willpower. And over here we have nature's will, increased nature, magic damage, and willpower. Really, really strong. And we're going to continue to work this way, pick up all of the willpower nodes, and we're going to get Heightened Malice. This is extremely strong, especially since now that we have Constricting Tendrils, it makes a lot more sense to go this. So let's go ahead and go straight for this legendary node, Heightened Malice. Well, there are 3 or more poisoned enemies nearby. You deal 45% increased damage. We've got Toxic Claws spreading poison. We've got Constricting Tendrils spreading poison. It's just, we're going to have tons of enemies poisoned all the time, and Debilitating Roar will immobilize them for increased crowd control damage. Poison by itself is already a crowd control. Poisoned enemies are slowed by 8% thanks to Envenom. So we've got tons of synergy there. We don't really need these defensive skills, so we're actually going to branch another node over here, pick up all these wisdom skills here. We're going to get Overturn, 5% increased damage to poisoned enemies and elites. Very good. Increased damage to poisoned enemies. That's really strong. And we're going to continue to pick up all of these willpower nodes, and we're going to get our final Paragon board, which is called Lust for Carnage, and we're going to rotate this board so we're closer to the legendary aspect. And then over here on the right side, we have Ferocity, gives you 5% increased werewolf skill damage and 4.5% increased critical strike damage. Perfect for our build because now our storm skills are werewolf skills. And then we're going to also get the legendary node, which says Lust for Carnage, critical strikes with werewolf skills restore 2 spirit. So all of our storm skill critical strikes are going to be restoring 2 spirit, which is awesome. Now from this point, we've got all of our different Paragon boards, and all 4 of them. Right, we've got our starter board, we picked up Thunderstruck, we've picked up Constricting Tendrils, and we've got Heightened Malice for increased damage if there's 3 or more poisoned enemies, and we've got Lust for Carnage. We also want to get this glyph socket. These are always important. It says here, this is pretty good. 5% damage reduction from enemies that are poisoned. You can pick that up as like a defensive skill. And then Sinking Fangs, plus 3% damage to poisoned enemies. All of the synergies are there. You just got to pick them up. You don't actually need intelligence unless you absolutely have to. Over here, doesn't seem super strong. Increased attack speed, regenerate. Here's another good one, Feral. You'll definitely want to pick up Feral. So let's go ahead and just go straight for it. Get the Glyph Socket. Feral gives you plus 5% werewolf skill damage, plus 10 willpower. You can get the surrounding nodes as well. Now, you've pretty much picked up every single offensive node, I would say, that you can find here. This is just attack speed. I mean, you can pick it up, but this is basically the build, and you'll have to experiment because, you know, this is all theory crafting. Once we're past level 25, right, it's kind of theory crafting, and so, you know, take it for what it's worth. You know, we pretty much maxed out. We're at 191 out of 220 Paragon board points. You know, a lot of these are defensive, so I'm not really going straight for them, but I went for all the offensive ones. I'm going to link here. This is actually a great one too. Pick this one up. I'm gonna try to link a couple of these, like the early game leveling one. I'm gonna try to put the end game one as well, so you guys can follow along. But this is the Storm Druid, like start to finish. Hopefully this was helpful. If you guys have any improvements, let me know. But I think this is a very solid build, very powerful. It hits a lot on the different synergies you can find between different items and aspects and skills. Let me know what you guys think. And if you enjoyed this build, guys, do me a favor, click that like button and subscribe for more Diablo 4 content. And if you like this video, you might like this video shown on your screen. And I'll see you there in just a second.